Everyone says the same thing about Light Yagami, became evil. But that statement hides a deeper problem, because it assumes something changed. It assumes there was a moment where Light crossed a line, a moment where he stopped being good and became something else. But what if that moment never existed? What if Light never became evil, because he was never truly good to begin with? That sounds extreme, but think carefully. The very first time Light uses the death note, he doesn't hesitate, he doesn't panic, he doesn't question morality. He doesn't even consider stopping. He tests it once, and then immediately continues. Name after name, face after face. That is not corruption. That is alignment, because real corruption looks different. Corruption creates resistance, creates guilt, conflict, doubt. But Light shows none of that, not even in the beginning, which means something important. The death note didn't change Light. It revealed him. Now here's where most people misunderstand the story. They think Light wanted justice. What? But Light never defined justice. He assumed it, instantly, without question. And that is the first warning sign, because true justice requires doubt. It requires questioning. It requires understanding that you might be wrong. But Light never allows that possibility. It's not even once. From the very beginning, he says, I will become the god of the new world. Not I will try. Not I will see if this is right. He decides. Immediately, that level of certainty is not justice. It's control. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. Why did Light need to become God? If his goal was truly to reduce crime, he didn't need an identity. He could have stayed anonymous, killed criminals silently. No name, no presence. No fear, the results would be the same. Crime would drop, but Light didn't choose that. He wanted the world to know. He wanted criminals to fear him. He wanted people to recognize him. Why? Because it was never about crime. It was about authority. Light didn't just want a better world. He wanted a world that followed him, and that difference is everything. Now let's slow down, because this is where the story becomes dangerous. When crime rates start dropping, the world begins to accept Kira. People feel safer. Society becomes more controlled, and suddenly, the question changes. Not is Light right, but is Light working? And that question is far more complicated because the answer is uncomfortable. Yes, in a way. Light was working, crime decreased, fear increased, order improved. Which means Light's system was effective. But effectiveness is not morality, and that is the trap. Because when something works, people stop questioning it. That's exactly what Light needed. Now, look at how Light treats opposition. Does he debate? Does he explain? Does he try to convince? No, he eliminates. Anyone who disagrees becomes a target. Not because they are criminals, but because they are obstacles, and that reveals something critical. Light's definition of justice expands. At first, it's criminals. Then it becomes anyone who opposes him, which means justice was never fixed. It was flexible. And flexible justice is not justice. It's power. But here's the twist. Light still believes he is right, completely. And that's what makes him dangerous. Not his actions, but his certainty. Because evil, in its simplest form, is not cruelty. It is the inability to question yourself. And Light never questions himself. Not once, even when things go wrong. Even when people die because of him, even when his plans fail. He doesn't reflect. He adapts. He justifies. He continues. Now compare that to LL never claims to be right. He doubts everything, eyes everything his own conclusions. That's why he tests. That's why he observes. That's why he delays. Because L understands something Light doesn't. Truth requires uncertainty. And uncertainty protects you from becoming absolute. Light removes uncertainty, and in doing so, he removes humanity. But here's the part that changes everything. Light is not unique. That's the most uncomfortable truth. It's because if you place the death note in the hands of someone else, what guarantees they would act differently? Light was intelligent, disciplined, focused, but he was also human. Humans crave control. They crave certainty. They want clear answers. Right versus wrong. Good versus evil. But reality doesn't work like that. And Death Note exposes that flaw. Now let's go deeper. Why didn't Light ever stop? even when things became complicated, even when he was at risk? Because stopping would mean admitting doubt, and doubt would destroy his identity. If Light questions himself, he is no longer Kira, and without Kira, he is just another human. And that is something he cannot accept. So he continues, not because he must, but because he cannot stop. And that is the real trap of power. It doesn't just change what you do, it changes what you are allowed to think. Light trapped himself inside his own belief. Now consider this. If Light truly believed in justice, he would accept the possibility of being wrong. But he doesn't, which means he doesn't believe in justice. He believes in himself. And that is the difference between a savior and a ruler. A savior questions, a ruler decides. Light decided from the very beginning. Now let's return to the original question. Was Light evil? Or was he simply honest? Because maybe Light didn't become evil. He expressed something that already exists. The human desire to control, to define, to judge, to eliminate uncertainty. And if that's true, then Death Note is not a story about one person. It's a story about everyone, about what happens when someone gains absolute power, without absolute doubt. Now look at the ending. Light doesn't lose because he is evil. He loses because he is exposed. Nier doesn't defeat Light with morality. He defeats him with proof. And once the illusion breaks, everything collapses. Because Light was never fighting for justice. He was maintaining an identity. And when that identity is destroyed, there's nothing left. No God. No system. No certainty. Just a human. Running. Afraid. Alone. And in that moment, you finally see the truth. Light was never evil. He was human. A human who believed too much. A human who questioned too little. A human who gained power and lost the ability to doubt. And that is far more dangerous than evil, because evil can be recognized, but certainty feels right, even when it destroys everything.